Radio Free Skaro!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode number 879. Hi, I'm Stephen in Edmonton.
Lauren in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
This episode, we're taking a 2-week break from our commentary for Earth Shock. I was about to call it the Earth Shock. Doctor Who and the Earth Shock, the target novelization. To finally sort of put to bed the Chris Chibnall era. We're doing a big old review panel this episode with Graeme, Burk, and Sage Young join us for that. I think there's some constructive criticism going on in this one. It's
a touch salty,
yes. a little bit. So I kind of knew it was going to happen, and so so next week we'll do it. We'll do another one too with Paul Kirkley from Doctor Who magazine, who interviewed Chibnall and the crew and reviewed all the episodes for DWM during the whole era. Gives us that sort of angle on the era, and I'm trying to hook up with Beth Axford to do a recording as well, because I know that Jodie Whittaker's Doctor meant a lot to her, and I want to get her thoughts and feelings on the podcast as well. So it's not just all doom and gloom and everything sucks with regards to the past 5 years of Doctor Who. It's we try to look at things objectively, and I think we do that. But it's good to hear multiple different voices. It's also weird. I don't know how you two are feeling, but to sort of it feels already like it's a million years ago. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Literally, we hit record. We're doing this on a Saturday. We literally hit record. We're about to launch into it, and the BBC drops another video of charming Ncuti Gatwa and new companion Millie Gibson having a chat, talking about Doctor Who and stuff. Millie Gibson was unveiled on Friday as a new companion on Children in Need. After 2 hours of Children in Need,
it was 2 hours.
Stringing us along forever until he finally unveiled her coming out of the TARDIS. Millie Gibson from she had been in Coronation Street and some other shows. She is 18 years old. Wow. I remember when, I'm not complaining about the age, but I remember when people were sort of saying like, oh wow, like, the next showrunner of Doctor Who will be like, someone who grew up on the modern series, and like we're getting there.
Yet, but yeah.
We're getting there. The people who are in the series grew up. Like she was born a month before they started shooting Christopher Eccleston's series. It's fascinating. Yeah,
nothing against her. I'm just very old.
Yeah,
and then in that video with Gatwa, she mentions having cut her teeth on the late Tennant, early Matt Smith era.
Yeah,
remembering Amy Pond and all that. And I'm like, okay, she would have been like 5, 6.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, that tracks. And
here's
that's depressing, thing, but it tracks.
What would we give to be like, not younger, but like to have grown up with that would be pretty cool. We'll never have that. It's kind of cool she does.
It is cool. It's I mean, that's what I love about this damn show, is that every person, like, I remember Tom Baker, and even that was like 7 years after it happened, but by the time I first saw it, but everyone sort of remembers that time when they became Doctor Who fans, and it's just like you're always the same age when you come into it, it seems, when you're young, and it doesn't matter at what point in the history of the earth that happens. It's just fun and exciting to see people who grew up on Doctor Who be in Doctor Who, and it's I know a lot of people are oh, I'm so old, and that's basically what's kind of like leading the chorus of people like us right now. But it's exciting that young people are into this show and are now in this show. I think it's such a wonderful testament to Doctor Who's eternalness.
I'm enjoying the chorus of oldsters lamenting how young the cast is.
I'm kind of tired.
It's
It's fine because I think this must have been what it was like in 1980, 81 when Davison took the helm.
Davison was 29 when they announced him. I don't trying to think of when they were actually announcing when Sarah Sutton was going to be in the cast. She was 19. Matthew Waterhouse 18. Janet Field I think it was 27 or 26. Like everyone was under 30. Everyone was under 30. I think that might be the youngest on average artist team, I think, the Davison crew, until Matt Smith. I think Smith was 26 and Karen Gillan was 20 or 21 when they announced her.
Was she 20? She was that young? Wow.
She was that young. Yeah, she was pretty young.
Super young, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's exciting. It's always exciting. It's always exciting when they unveil a new. I mean, it's kind of funny because I think Mandip Gill's like 32. I think like she was. She played a lot.
Again,
younger.
She played young, and she was a lot older than Tosin Cole. Well, still is.
Yeah, I think Tosin Cole's 26, 27. I think, but that was maybe not when he started on the show, of course. But
my cynical side wants to say. Give praise to RTD for reaching into that untapped well of young, fake tan, fake blonde actresses for the role.
I love that. Well, she literally in the video, this is what Shooty Gatwa asks, "What were you doing when you found out you got the role?" She says, "I just got out of the spray salon." I just thought that's perfect. Spray tan salon, which is funny. She seems very charming.
Very
from Manchester. So we're getting a nice bit of accents. I still love listening to Shooty Gatwa talk. Chris, you said you loved the way he says TARDIS. I think is that.
I love the way he says TARDIS.
He's just oozes charm. Like every time that guy opens his mouth, he's a charming dude.
I know.
I know, and saw last night as well on the Children in Need clip that she went to drama school in Oldham, I think it was, and so yeah. Representation for the Northerners, and of course Gatwa having grown up in Scotland. So we got RTD from Wales and Millie Gibson from the North, and Gatwa from Scotland. So good spread of folks from around the UK.
It's like London is unrepresented in Doctor Who these days. It's like
it's a little overrepresented for the last 50-odd years.
When will someone stand up for London in Doctor Who? Basically. Yeah. Exciting times. And once again, just another testament of the marketing that we get in this day and age. It's like, yep, look at this. 2 things back to back in November, a year away from we actually get to see these people, and here we are. We're getting nice little interview clips.
I complain because I did sit through Children in Need while watching.
You did.
Special counsel being appointed to accuse Trump, which I call dueling fandoms. But anyway, and yeah, I'm actually, I'm sitting through Children in Need, bored out of my tree, looking at people I don't know who they are. But I'm also getting Doctor Who news. Like that's new. That hasn't happened for a while. I know. So there's that.
It's and we've been sort of at this rate. It's going to be Doctor Who's 59th anniversary coming up on Wednesday here, November 23rd, of course. One has to think that there's going to be something coming down the pipe.
It's got to be something.
Probably, given that they're announcing the new companion, means they're really about to start shooting with the two, which means their costumes will be in public if they're shooting on location. So, my guess is they're going to be a costume reveal on...
I think you're right.
At the very least on Doctor Who Day.
Given the timing of the companion reveal, I mean, what... Yeah, exactly. Like, what else is happening that this couldn't have waited another 5 days? I mean, obviously,
Children Needs is great.
Children in Need is a hell of a good reason to do something because obviously there's been that familiar that association between Doctor Who and Children in Need in the past, and why not continue it or resurrect it? I guess,
including the Chibnall era. To be fair, I think.
I'm trying to think. Sometimes I get Red Nose Day and Children in Need mixed up because I know that Jodie Whittaker and Mandip Gill did a thing about like clapping for carers, and I can't remember if that was during the good old pandemic, which kind of put a crimp on a lot of things. Let's face it, and I can't remember if they were part of that or Red Nose Day. But you're right. I'm trying to think. There used to be little skits, like Moffat would do skits in the early Smith days that would be on for Children in Need. Obviously, Pudsey Cutaway was David Tennant's first public
That was
thing.
Big Night in April 2020.
Big Night In.
So it wasn't that was something else completely.
Oh, was it? Oh, right. Is that what it was for? Oh, okay. So it wasn't even for
But
that.
good memory, nevertheless.
Yeah, well, good and bad at some point. Anyway, it's exciting. I don't know how the show did. Why does the show? I honestly, this show, fellas, it just continues to refresh me and excite me, and there's like I don't know why it does this to me, but I'm always excited.
With you in particular,
yeah.
I can tell you why, because you don't watch anything past 1978 other than this show.
Apart from
so
Doctor
that's
Who.
why.
Are you going to talk about your new obsession, Stephen?
I am. Graeme Kibblewhite posted the on Twitter a couple days ago, like the accumulated guest star actor credits on a show I had never heard about called Quiller. It was from 1975. It has a banging theme song, which I think was basically taken from stock music and used as the theme song, kind of like All Creatures Great and Small was. It starred Michael Jaston. Maury Watson from Black Orchid is in it, and the music is amazing. And they shot some episodes in Malta, Warren, and it was never released on DVD or Blu-ray. But the official Michael Jaston fan club uploaded all 13 episodes somehow onto YouTube like a couple years ago. So yeah, welcome to my new. There's only 13 episodes. I haven't watched any yet outside of the opening titles and maybe the first 2 minutes of episode 1. I'm thinking I need to savor this. So yeah, that's going to be my new obsession. To hell with all your Netflix shows. I do not care about them. This show from 1975 has my undivided attention.
Of course,
Quiller.
it does.
Quiller on YouTube. I almost feel like because they never had an official release and they're uploaded to YouTube, I'm thinking are these missing? Should I download them just in case for safekeeping? And I'm thinking,
of course, why are you even debating this? You're going to do it.
It just took a while. I've been busy, but yeah, I'm totally going to do it. So that's talking. So both Quiller, to recap the news, Quiller from 1975, starring Michael Jason,
the news, yes,
and Millie Gibson, who sometimes I keep wanting to call him Billy Bobby Brown from Stranger Things, but Millie Gibson is the new companion. Combined age of 48 in the TARDIS right now, which is pretty much our ages, and indeed younger than Warren, but it's fine. It's a new generation.
That's great. Thanks.
It's a new, exciting generation for Doctor Who, and that's what I love about the show, is that we can still watch it and enjoy it, even though everyone is much younger than us, but it's still, as
I've said in other places, the kids are all right.
They are all right. They really are. They're doing great work. And there's a 60-year-old man writing stuff for them, so it's everyone's pretty much covered here in this.
Is he that old now?
He is 60 or 61.
I think he just turned 60. Yeah.
So young at heart. Though.
59. He turns 60 in April.
Oh, in April. Okay.
All right.
Well,
nevertheless, I don't think of him as approaching 60.
Mm-hmm.
Or Moffat, who just turned 61, I think.
He did, didn't he? Yeah. As we mentioned in the time last, I think, happy birthday to Stephen Moffat. But exciting times. Look forward to what's going to happen this week. I mean, who knows? But we keep getting stuff. Doctor Who news. This is quite something. This is quite something. This new era of Doctor Who. Because I mean, not to compare and dump on but I remember like the announcement of the cast of the Jodie Whittaker era only came out because it was going to be leaked, and so they gathered together at a doorway at 10 p.m. on a Sunday night, yes. And says, "Here's your new cast. Here we go." Otherwise, they're gonna, they seem to be better at controlling the message in this. They only because I don't
message to control for one.
Yeah, because I was trying to think like I don't think. I mean, I wasn't paying too much attention to the chatter, but it wasn't like her name was out there. It wasn't like it was being leaked or bandied about. It was like nobody knew, and so well done on their part.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I hope this buzz for Doctor Who, this renewed buzz, there is a buzz in the air. It means bigger buzz for Gallifrey 1 too. By the way, tickets are still available, of course, for Gallifrey 1. Shooty Gatwa won't be there. Millie Gibson won't be there.
Jodie Whittaker will.
Jodie Whittaker certainly will be, along with a whole host of other people, including Craig Ells, who played Carvanista, Dan Slott, Simon Garrier, great fellow Simon Garrier. He's been on this podcast a few times in the past. Jeff Cummins, who did a lot of the covers for the Target novelizations back in the day, and Tim Dane Reed, who played some creatures and whatnot in the modern series, all announced in a small little guest announcement. There's also...
You said Dan Slott, this is his first galley. I swore he'd been there before, but I guess not.
No, he never had. He was so excited about it that I think he tweeted the news like a month ago before he was even officially confirmed or announced, and because he's that excited to come to Gallifrey 1. He's a famous comic booker, isn't he? He does those comic books a lot.
Indeed. Yes,
indeed.
Yeah. What does he do? What kind of comic books does he do?
Spider-Man.
Also, there's I can't remember the name of it offhand, but Marvel does they sort of do a deep dive into the comic side of things on Disney Plus, like a little documentary series, and he's one of the featured people in one of the episodes.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, and he talks about his process for writing comics, which is pretty cool.
I like that. I like the nuts and bolts of how things are made and stuff like that. So I would appreciate that. I remember seeing a picture of him because he visited the Capaldi TARDIS, I think, 5 or 6 years ago.
He's also been a Reality Bomb guest. So
he's been on a Reality Bomb, but I just remember him just posted some pictures of himself on the TARDIS set, and everyone was just like, "Oh my God, that's not the TARDIS set. What could it mean?" And so, but just means he's a Doctor Who fan. But he's also doing a comic book next year. He's doing a 10th Doctor 60th anniversary comic with 10th Doctor and Martha. So, and also 9th Doctor and Rose Tyler. So you could tell which era of Doctor Who. Maybe Dan Slott was also born in 2004 and grew up on the 9th and 10th Doctor eras. Dan Slott is not 18 years old.
Unlike Simon Garrier doing a book on David Whittaker, so clearly he was born in the 1940s.
That's true. Yeah, I know. I'm looking forward to the publication of that book, and indeed the documentary about David Whittaker on the season 2 set, which we're desperately waiting for to come out in North America. I know it comes out in a couple weeks in the UK, and I am jealous. I did buy a region-free Blu-ray player finally, but it would look different on the shelf if I was to get the UK version of the box set. So.
What a cavalcade of problems.
Yeah. It also depends on which version you end up getting as well. If you get the limited one or the bog standard one.
Or the standard version, like the season 24 set that's coming out in February is the standard one. Because they basically put out the hardback, if you will, and then put out the soft cover several months or years later, it seems. Isn't that how it works?
Yeah, there's a healthy delay.
Yeah, but I never seem to notice because I never paid too much attention to the artwork of the UK versions. I'll be honest, because I'm just looking forward to the North American version. But yeah. Can I just also say, just back to Shooty Gatwa and Millie Gibson, Disney Plus tweeting out that same video that was released by the BBC. Still hasn't quite set in yet that Disney and Doctor Who are a pairing now. Just
weird. It is weird. Well, it'll be less weird in a year, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm still getting used to it. Still getting used to this this cavalcade of press and publicity, building up to a whole new era of Doctor Who.
Just to kind of cover off a bit more about Galley,
please.
2 big things. Number one, for speaking of Jodie Whittaker, so we saw in 2020 with Christopher Eccleston. So obviously the demand to see the interview with the big name is high. So they're doing something, I think, a little bit different, where anyone who tries, so there's the interview on Saturday and Sunday. It's meant to be basically the same content, so nobody misses anything, but you're only able to go to one or the other. So if you queue up for the Saturday one and you get turned away because the room is full, which is doubtless going to happen, you'll be given a priority ticket for Sunday. And then everyone else who doesn't try to queue for Saturday just has, queue up for Sunday, and you you sit where you sit.
Right.
So that's a little bit different. And then COVID policies. So masking is still going to be required in 2023.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So
I'm absolutely cool with that.
Having been to Gallifrey last year where masking was required and vaccination was required too, I think it was it required? It was required last year.
Proof
Is it
of
required this
vaccination
year?
was required. Proof of vaccination was required last time. Next time it's that or
negative
documentation of a negative test, which
right.
wasn't allowed last time.
That's right. Just get vaccinated. It's honestly way better. Having had COVID, all three of us, just get vaccinated.
Yep. Yeah, just do it. Come on.
It's vaccinated. They really do work. Yeah, I mean, I wore a mask all weekend and still got nicely drunk on various days and had a great time while wearing a mask. So it was
to be fair, it doesn't take much.
Hey, I had a great time.
Tell me I'm wrong.
I had a great time. Really looking forward to this next year as well. Hopefully, if more like you two are going to be there this time around, so that'll
Hopefully,
be nice,
yeah.
and a whole bunch of other people, of course, will be returning after taking a year off. And with all the energy and buzz from this new era of Doctor Who, while we look back and celebrate the old, it's going to be a good time at Gallifrey 1 this year. Good time.
It'll have been 3 years somehow.
Oh my God, that's right.
I don't know how.
Yeah,
but 3 years since last time.
Since you would have been 21, you missed 21, you missed 22, and yeah, golly gee.
Well, there was no 21, but yeah,
obviously, yeah. It's going to be fun. It's going to be needed, I think. You know, what like this past year was. I just feel like it's, you know, yeah, good time. And I'm looking forward to watching the Jodie panel as well. Because I managed to get like literally a second row seat. I think some of the Head Over Feels crew and Erica kind of like got in there the Sunday morning Eccleston panel. And I just said, we got another seat. I'll go in there. And so like I was like literally second row for Eccleston being interviewed by Deb Stanish and Ty Gooden, and I obviously had a pretty good seat for the Saturday Eccleston panel. So I managed.
You don't say.
I managed to. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I interviewed him on stage.
It's never come up. No,
I know.
No,
I just just in case you're new to the show. So I saw both of them, and but oddly I felt guilty about watching that second Eccleston panel, thinking I was already here for this. Am I taking someone's seat? But whatever.
I didn't read the entirety of the galley post, but I'm just kind of skimming some stuff, and apparently it has been promised that Boney M's Rasputin will be played at the dance party.
I mean,
well, one would think no less. Yeah,
that's kind of like it's kind of like in Edmonton, like when Tom Petty died. I'm just thinking, like, how do any radio stations here need to alter their programming because they already just play wall to wall Tom Petty to like contribute? It's
so,
like
this is a little not related, but I was playing Grand Theft Auto the other day, and Black Velvet came on the radio, and I'm like, "What in the game? You got to be kidding me!"
I know.
Which Canadian worked on this?
No, it was a hit. It was a hit in the States.
Christopher Ward.
It was a
yes, okay, but
it was a hit. I know because Erica sometimes tells me about songs that she knows from Canada. I'm just like, what? How did that hit the? All right, whatever. That's the song that broke. That one.
Yep.
Americans.
Yet on the flip side, we'll have, in-depth knowledge of, say, the Bare Naked Ladies, for example, and an American will know 1 week, and that's it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the sellout days. We know the real Bare Naked Ladies before they sold out and made money for their efforts.
I love selling out. The
How
dumbest phrase
dare
ever.
they?
How dare you get paid for your work? What a jerk.
Stupid Metallica having people buy their albums instead of 5,000 diehard fans going to every concert of theirs.
Well,
anyway.
the great thing about that, though, is that Chuck D got to give Lars Ulrich a dressing down, so I'm all for that.
I don't know what that's referring to, but I'm sure it's
the Napster days when Lars Ulrich got very angry, and then Chuck D was like, "You're an idiot," and Chuck D is a very intelligent man, so and Lars Ulrich not so much. So
don't like his drum
comparatively
sound either.
speaking, anyway.
Yeah. Speaking of conventions, I should also say, I hope everyone has had a good time. Because how this comes out is pretty much over at LI Who, making their proper return to the Doctor after, sort of COVID sort of hampered things for everyone over the past couple of years. That happened this weekend, and I hope everybody has a good time at Chicago TARDIS this upcoming weekend. They have canceled basically every single flight from Edmonton to the Midwest, and it is an enormous hassle. So to get from Edmonton to Chicago or even Minneapolis these days. So if you're listening, Delta Airlines, reinstate those flights immediately, because it's a nuisance to fly anywhere. For me alone. Thankfully, WestJet still goes from Edmonton to LA, so direct.
Yeah, and direct.
For now, we'll see if that is there in February, because
they have a plane painted in Disney stuff, so I don't think.
Oh, do they really? Oh, is there Doctor Who on that plane? Because Doctor Who,
I think it's like Mickey and Donald and Pluto stuff.
I don't care about them. Are we going to see? Are we going to see a Mickey Mouse Doctor Who? Is there going to be that kind of a crossover? I wonder. Will that ever actually happen? Like, hasn't yet.
I mean, it's Disney. They like to milk things. So
in the words of Isaac Hayes, shut your mouth.
Nicely done, Chris.
Now, technically, there was his backup singers, but I get the point that you're making, Chris. Shaft. I don't think it will. Who knows? I'm intrigued. What
if we got a Galaxy's Edge Doctor Who area?
I don't know.
What would your feelings be if Disney had a Doctor Who area? I think it'd be kind of cool, honestly.
I would go. Of course you would. I've never been to Disneyland, but I would probably go if that was the case. Because
that sounds like a spoiler alert for something in December.
Sorry, I just had this image of you going to Disneyland and so a cast member in costume, you're boring them to tears with tales of Quiller. Sir, I have to be nice to you. Can you please stop talking, though?
And another thing, no.
Imagine if it was a Valeyard cast member.
Oh, God.
Did you know that when you played Quiller?
Yeah. I've never... Oh, see, now I've interviewed Michael Jason on stage, and now I never knew about Quiller up until now. Now, if I ever get to again, guess what? I don't care about Trial of a Time Lord, Michael Jason. We're talking about Quiller now.
At least when you interviewed Philip Martin, you had gangsters in your back pocket for that. So
and Star Cops.
See, I did that in reverse with Jeremy Bulloch, where I said, "We're not talking about Boba Fett. We're talking about the Time
Space
Warrior
Museum and the Time Warrior." Museum,
yeah. And he was shocked but pleased that happened. So.
Oh yeah. Okay. Next convention appearance I'm making with Michael Jason, live commentary of episode 1 of Quiller.
Okay.
Just make sure it's in the smoking section, otherwise he may not last long enough.
That's true.
This is a Chapant's con because it's a con for you and you alone.
My convention. It's just commentating on God bless Michael. We lost Michael Ferguson recently, otherwise he'd be there. It's like, we'd have a Michael Ferguson convention con because Michael Ferguson directed some episodes of Quiller, folks. I'm really looking forward to watching that show.
Lord. You need help, man.
I do, but I don't. But I do. It's exciting. Anyway,
somebody married him, folks. Somebody married him.
Yeah, somebody sought me out on Twitter. On Twitter, this is why I love Twitter. My wife on Twitter, for crying out loud. It's a great place sometimes. Anyway, let's. Speaking of looking back, which apparently is all I ever do, according to some people. Let's look back at the time lapse. This is the anniversary week, so I wonder what fun stuff we'll dig up here. On this week in Doctor Who, starting on November 20th, they wisely renamed the new companion, as played by Maureen O'Brien, from Tanny to Vicky. Got her name on this day in history. Remember Vicky Day? That's what today is. So,
sure,
yeah. Fraser Hines has issued his final contract for the Space Museum and the Space Pirates, Space Pirates and the War Games. Yeah, and this day, November 20th, 1968. So there you go. Happy last contract day. That's right. You'd be getting a pretty steady paycheck on Emmerdale Farm after that. So no worry about that.
And death of Ark in Space auteur John Le Carrotti.
So it was. And indeed, Morris Berry died on November 20th, 2000. So
I'd like to I'd like to point out 1980 because Eric Sayward is commissioned to write The Visitation, which in and of itself isn't exciting, except the Making of Doctor Who book was all about The Visitation. So I read it cover to cover to cover to cover over and over and over again.
Oh yeah.
I don't have that book. Where do you don't still have
I don't
it,
anymore
do you?
either, but I got it way back in the day and I was just fascinated with it.
Oh man, I would have been fascinated about that too. I never had that book. Damn.
It was like a big sort of I don't know what the format is, but like larger paperback.
Right.
Thin, large, magazine size kind of thing.
Like an A4 size kind of thing, or
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I forget where. That's the one where there's like a photo of John Nathan Turner at his little planning board or something, isn't it? I
think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the cover's got, of course, Peter Davis on it. So
yeah. This is before Sayward was script editor. He was commissioned to write this, I think, but was then he also wrote Earthshock shortly afterwards before his official script editorship kicked in, I think. There's a weird little legal loophole where it's basically like, well, you can write your own stuff, but you can only because we haven't, paid you yet to be script editors. So that's how that happened. So.
And these stories, that and Earthshock, are singularly not unpleasant compared to his... unpleasant, I mean, in terms of the characters being unpleasant people.
Right. Apart from, what's his name? Richard Mace. As a lad could walk, my barn is
Come on, he's such an actor.
yards from here. I love him. I love that guy, Richard Mace.
You can tell he eats a pack of cigarettes every day.
He literally
just eats
did.
the package.
He did. Oh, he smoked so much. I think he died quite young, unsurprisingly, given how much he'd smoked and got that gravelly voice of his. Like, I don't remember the name of the actor. Michael Robbins, I think is the name.
I don't remember either.
Yeah.
As a John Savinet fan, that's another reason to enjoy The Visitation. Even though he's only in the first episode.
He's in one scene and he never gets a close-up. Good old Peter Moffat hates his close-ups. Why should we show who the actors are? We could just show everyone in one wide shot. I didn't even know John Savinet was in that episode until years later.
I remember being blown away by the holographic wall. And it's a really simple effect, but at the time I was like, that's so cool. How'd they do that?
Yeah. And it all started on this day in history, November 20th, 1980. November 21st, happy birthday, Malcolm Hulk, born November 21st, 1924. That's pretty cool. Died far too young, of course, in his early 50s. Quite a day in history, actually, looking through this. A press conference is held to launch Doctor Who 2 days prior to broadcast. So I guess the BBC has done it this way for all the time, but, there's a new show. It's called Doctor Who. Anybody have any questions? No, we're just covering John F. Kennedy's trip to Dallas, Texas, which I'm sure will go off without a hitch.
Which will be uneventful, yeah.
Yeah. So, I've never heard of this press conference. I wonder if there was who was on it? Who was on the press conference? Was it
sure? Was there a screening of the episode?
I don't. Probably not. Because
and not if, but how many panelists were drunk?
Well, it was early 60s. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I want to know the details of this. I wonder if there's like a transcript of this or something somewhere. Who was on it? Who was on the panel? What were press conferences like to launch TV shows back in those days?
How common was it to do that in the first place as well?
How common? Yeah. Because sometimes you think that Doctor Who, this unknown little show that just happened to spring into the mainstream with the Daleks and stuff. I mean, they obviously put some thought into actually, hey, let's tell people about it, and at a press conference. So, I didn't say anything, Siri. Go ahead.
1966. Reshot the final scene of the Highlanders to reflect Jamie staying on board the TARDIS, or going on board the TARDIS, I should say.
Yeah. And Michael Craze and Annika Wills loved it. Loved doing that. Thinking, oh, good. All of our lines are getting gone, and then we'll get recast.
Well, it's not like Jamie got very many of them, as it turns out. But
that's true.
You mentioned, the youngness of the Fifth Doctor's cast. So Sarah Sutton, 1980.
Yep, November 21st.
The press reports that she has joined the Doctor Who cast.
Golly, I mean, she was a child actress anyway. I remember. I know I've mentioned this before. Alice in Wonderland. It's full. It was like made 1974. I think Barry Letts produced it. She plays Alice, and it's not a CG, a CSO Wonderland, i.e. bad, but fascinating. So that's BritBox. If you're listening, along with Delta Airlines, if you could add the 1970s Alice in Wonderland to your programming, that would be fabulous.
Your list of grievances grows.
Yeah, I know. Well, it should be easy, right? Just to add a thing to a streaming service. I just want to see it. I just want to see how
sure it is, yeah.
bonkers it is. I've only seen clips of it in Doctor Who DVD documentaries of it, and I saw it go, wow, this looks
And it's not on YouTube? That's surprising.
I haven't looked, to be fair. But given the Quiller revelation,
Oh, dear God.
maybe I'll luck out. Who knows? And that very same day, they recorded bits of the Keeper of the Trocken at BBC Television.
What do you keep back there? Trockens mostly.
Yeah, just got a bunch of Trockens. You know, that sort of thing. Anything else on November 21st happen that...
Christopher H. Bidmead coming back to in the Hollows of Time, which would have been season 23, directed by Matthew Robinson. Not much that I'm seeing here on the actual plot line, other than it would have involved string theory.
Oh, fine. Everyone loves string theory. I don't know what string theory is. What's string theory?
Physics.
Oh, physics.
Yes, that.
Yeah.
Very complicated math.
Very complicated.
And then
math.
it, of course, got abandoned because season 23 got reworked a little bit. Just a smidgen. Just a smidgen.
Here's this Bidmead related. As a kid, I used to read Color Computer magazine because I still have my Color Computer. And right after Logopolis was on PBS.
Right.
They had a thing about bubble computation, like the thing he talks about it in. So I actually learned about the thing that they half-assedly referenced.
Wow.
in Logopolis. I don't remember any of it. I think all those issues are online, so I could probably find it if I wanted to.
Did you learn about block transfer computation as well, or...?
No, because that's made up, unlike bubble computing, which wasn't.
Did you reference the index file at least?
No, I did none of these things. But as I've said before, those guys are just blockchain weirdos.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you mean the on Logopolis, you mean, yeah.
Yeah, the Logopolitans or whatever they're called. I want to call them Neapolitans.
It's kind of, watching that thing, it's weird how an entire society of blockchain people could just sort of dissolve into nothingness in such a quick time, and then FTX happened, and it's like went from like $80 billion to nothing in the space of a week. So obviously, Logopolis was a scam the whole time.
Well, probably, but the thing about the Logopolis guys is they're quiet. Like nobody is on whatever Doctor Who's 81 version of Twitter is yelling about crypto or about entropy, except the Doctor, really.
Is there Twitter on these abacuses? Where is Twitter? Oh, I can't find. What about Mastodon? Is it on this abacus here that I'm using to create the universe?
All they can get is TikTok, and all the people are doing dances when you can't see them.
I know.
Everything's terrible. Let's admit it.
All right. Well, let's move. Well, it wasn't as bad as it was for John F. Kennedy on November 22nd. I make fun. The poor man died on November 22nd, 1963. The fascinating thing about this, I posted this on Twitter a year or two ago, but on this day, on November 22nd, they're about to record episode 2 of the Daleks. And they had literally just I think they started rolling at 8:30 in the evening or whatever it was, and they had literally about 5 minutes before it rolls. By the way, John F. Kennedy has just been assassinated in Texas at that time of the day, and this is like the 9/11 of 1963. It was that big of a world event, and so they are reeling from this. And this is okay. I guess we got to go shoot a Doctor Who episode now. So when they were shooting the episode, and about 5 or 7 minutes in is when the Daleks for the first time ever actually appear on screen. Literally in the universe at the same exact time, LBJ is being sworn in as the new president on Air Force One with Jackie Kennedy standing at the very famous photo. That is happening at the exact same time as they are shooting the very first Dalek scene in Doctor Who. Obviously, two entirely different kind of world events, but one obviously is huge in that a new president is being sworn in under very sad circumstances, and a complete television icon, and it happens at the exact same time. It's fascinating.
One is slightly more important than the other.
I know, but they're important in their own universes, is what I mean to say.
I suppose.
It's very interesting to me. Very interesting to me.
And you call it the 9/11, like up to 9/11. Everybody my parents' age knows exactly where they were when Kennedy got shot.
Yeah, yeah, just something to do with
the moon landing, some of those
Challenger for
seminal
us.
events.
Yeah,
Challenger for us.
My mom doesn't remember the moon landing.
And
as much
9/11,
as
of course. Yeah,
9/11, of course, for us. All of this is new to Billy Gibson, so don't ask her about 9/11. She wasn't alive for it.
Lucky her.
Yeah. Be alive for COVID.
And then also they did a second order of 13 episodes for Doctor Who Beyond Inside the Spaceship, or Edge of Destruction, as you will.
Golly, what a day! What a day for Doctor Who, honestly. Do you think?
Which is kind of cool because, I mean, Doctor Who doesn't really take off until Dalek Mania hits.
Yeah.
Which is, as you say, being recorded at the time. Mm-hmm. And they're still confident enough to say, yeah, okay, we'll give you 13 more.
That's interesting, isn't it?
That pilot went great. Here's 13 more episodes.
Yeah.
Hasn't even aired.
Yeah. Oh, because they had written Inside the Spaceship to fill out a 13 episode order just in case that was the end. By the time it had come for them to make it, it was well in the can that they were okay. We're gonna keep going. But at the time, it was like a little bit iffy.
Obviously, the press conference went really well.
Yeah. Oh, they must have wowed people. They must have had like Shooty Gatwa and Millie Gibson type charisma at that press conference. That saying, "Oh,
Bill Hartnell has his charms, but I'm not sure that he's going to touch Shooty Gatwa."
Yeah, asking Carol Ann Ford, were you just coming out of the spray tan salon when you heard you were cast as the new companion to Doctor Who?
What's a spray tan salon?
What is a spray? What's a salon? Vidal Sassoon came up with a hairstyle for Carol Ann Ford, just so you know.
Are you making that up?
No, I'm not. I'm absolutely not. Yeah,
I think that might be true. Yeah.
Yep.
Then it's 1966, BBC says no to Terry Nation for a Dalek spinoff, and then decides to kill off the Daleks.
That
worked out great,
lasted.
didn't it?
That lasted.
Yeah, called your bluff there, Terry.
With little picture of the Dalek Emperor from Evil.
Yeah,
the coolest Dalek Emperor, frankly.
I remember this when Verity Lambert died, November 22nd, 2007. I thought, what a sad timing, but also what perfect timing, because we sort of like that Doctor Who Day that year was just basically dedicated to her legacy, essentially, amongst fandom at the time. But
that was the first major Doctor Who event after I moved to Britain, actually.
Oh,
her death.
You moved to that's right. You moved to England that long ago, wasn't it? Yeah, 2007. Yeah. Was there a period of national mourning there? No offense to Verity Lambert, there probably wasn't, but
and not as such. No.
But you probably
Doctor
had
Who fans are probably
yeah. You probably knew Doctor Who fans and commiserate a little bit. I'll bet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Because I went out drinking with several on Doctor Who Day that year, and so that was there were many glasses raised to Verity Lambert's memory.
I betcha. Because of what she launched that started November 23rd, 1963. Also, the birth of Doctor Who, and also, fascinatingly, the birth of Doctor Who director Joe Ahern. The same day. That's fascinating. So
his mother probably missed the original broadcast then.
That's true. Oh, how tragic. How utterly tragic of her. Oh, man. Happy birthday, Michelle Gomez, also born in 1966.
Iconic.
November 23rd. Very iconic. And Bill Stretton died that day. He wrote the Web Planet. So, yeah. Obviously, the biggest day in Doctor Who history when you think about it. There's Day of the Doctor and the cinemas and everything. Oddly enough, it's just like, according to the website that we're looking at, that's the last notable event for Doctor Who on November 23rd. So...
I think you're skipping over the debut broadcast of Silver Nemesis in 1988.
Yeah, there's that. The debut broadcast of Dragonfire by coincidence.
Well, for something that is actually important, the debut of the Five Doctors, not in the UK.
Right. Yeah. On PBS
was
stations all across the
Chicago?
U.S. Everywhere.
Okay.
Everywhere. Even KSPS in Spokane, our local, so to speak, they aired it. I was not aware of Doctor Who at the time fully, so I never watched it then. Yeah, you might have, because you watched it like starting in March or May, like
Something
Robot,
like that.
yeah.
83. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
1989, season 26 or season 27 has been postponed, but not canceled.
by Peter Cregeen, who also directed Sandbaggers episodes earlier in his career.
Oh, well.
I know.
It's a toughie, man.
Complicated legacy. What a I like that. Also, to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Doctor Who, while they're not showing the 5 Doctors, the BBC is commissioning Glenn McCoy to write the remainder of Time Lash. So well done. Happy 20th anniversary. You get to write Time Lash.
Yay?
Yeah. A lot of Doctor Who was also made in the 2000s on this day in history. I wonder how much attention was paid to the anniversary of it. Probably just in passing. Oh, it's the anniversary today. Oh. All right, let's line up the shot. That's probably all it was. Maybe they put something on the clapperboard or something like that, you know. This
I would
day in
hope
history.
so.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, but I would hope so.
Yeah, I would hope so. So, yeah, November 23rd. I think a lot has been already talked about November 23rd. We don't need to go into too much more detail about that, other
But
than
November 24th, though,
what's on November 24th, Chris?
Very little.
The debut of Nightmare of Eden, episode 1.
Oh, I am almost hitting the official anniversary day, because I'm starting that tonight is record the Saturday, and then so yeah, I'm almost in lockstep with the original broadcast. I'm so looking forward to it. I might watch it twice, once with the original effects, and once again with the new CG effects, because I love Nightmare of Eden so much. If we were to do a poll of great Doctor Who episodes, this would be the most biased and small world poll of this podcast. Thinking, yeah, Nightmare of Eden's great. 67%.
Well, I mean, I don't care about it.
Yeah, you don't care. So. You're indifferent. And they got 2 complete defenders of it. Mm-hmm. Chris and I. It's great. Love it. Love Nightmare of Eden. Yeah, pretty quiet day in history, actually, the day after the original broadcast of Doctor Who. But
everyone was just resting after the frenzy of the 23rd.
That's true. Doctor Who after show party was also on the 23rd, and indeed the 5-ish Doctors. We should also mention that. But
true, yeah,
yes.
especially the after show.
Yeah, the after show. I still have that.
Did it mention Day of the Doctor in there?
I mentioned it very briefly. Yeah,
We've endlessly talked about it, though.
No, I know, but I'm surprised that it didn't. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, it was big. It's if you don't know, Day of the Doctor celebrated the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who. And they did an episode about it, and it aired, and lots of people watched it in 96 countries at the same time. That is stunning.
Theaters.
In theaters. That's stunning that they pulled that off. Can we just react about that? It's like, how did they do that? How did they do that? You know?
Yeah, it rocked.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. I had posted a video, and once we heard that the new companion is going to be announced on Children in Need, and I found that video where they announced Stephen Fry and Lenny Henry being announced to be a Doctor Who. And it's just like them standing in front of a crumpled bed sheet and the light turning on, and they're just sort of grinning and stuff. And like,
can I go home? Please, can I go home? Come on.
We went from that to like several years prior to that, coordinating a Doctor Who episode airing in theaters and on TV at the exact same time in 96 different countries. It's just like, my God, it's like the moon landing to like, we can't even afford to go to the moon. And we were just there 6 years ago.
That is kind of like the space program, yeah.
It's like the space program. It's like we could arrange a worldwide broadcast, and now we can't even announce a guest star at Doctor Who properly. What the hell's wrong with us? Anyway... November 25th. Is that the last day? I can't remember what the last day of the week. One more after this. Anything jump out? Yeah, it's November.
Your favorite, 1980. Friend of the show, Andrew Smith, commissioned to provide a storyline for something called the Torsen Triumvirate.
That's a silly
I love
name.
These names.
That's a
great name.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. Nothing here about the actual content of it, but
no.
5th Doctor story, Adric Nisatigan. season 19, present day Earth. But,
did he call it that? Did Andrew Smith call it that? I wonder himself, or was he saying, you know what you should call? Here's what we're gonna call this the Torsen Triumvirate, and now write a story around that. And no, wouldn't have worked.
Let's have to ask him.
Yeah, Five Doctors aired on BBC One for the first time, as you alluded to a couple days ago here, Chris. So there's this official. Also of note, New Zealand TV New Zealand aired Silver Nemesis episodes 2 and 3. So there's another instance of episodes of Doctor Who broadcasting outside of the UK for the first time, ahead of the UK rather. So, and as a result, several decades later, TV New Zealand was slapped on the wrist by losing Doctor Who when the BBC signed with Disney Plus. So,
yeah,
you know, reap what you sow, TV New Zealand.
Yep.
You sow Silver Nemesis a little early, it's going to come back to haunt you. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon.
Yep. Meanwhile, back in Blighty, the BBC copyright department has to defend the use of the Candyman to Bassett Foods, saying that we're not infringing on your trademark. Go away.
Yeah. But we won't use it again.
And more importantly, yeah, exactly. Sure, they won't use it again. Thank God.
I don't know. I was just talking to friends about the Candyman last night, oddly enough, if you could believe it. You probably can't believe it coming from me, but
of course I can.
Yeah,
I can believe you walking down the street and talking to random strangers about the Candyman.
in Disneyland's Doctor Who land, telling some poor cast member dressed as the Candyman things they may not know about the Candyman, including this fact right here.
You probably don't realize it, but the costume you're wearing, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to be that person.
You don't want to be, but you might be getting there.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, and then to move on to our final day for this week's Time Lash. 1993.
What happened on 1993?
Yes. Debut broadcast of Dimensions in Time.
Episode 1.
Improper and untoward.
Episode 1.
Was that for... That wasn't for Children in Need 2, was it? Was it around the same time? If so, it was slightly later than usual. I can't remember what the
house party
it was a charity thing,
was
wasn't
it?
It
Children
must have
in
been.
Need?
Yeah.
It was for something. It was from... Its time has sort of like evaporated my memory of the details of this. It got like 13 million viewers. I mean,
terrible.
Well, I mean, I don't think
it was Children in Need. Yes.
Yeah, 13 million people turned into Children in Need. They didn't say, "Hey, a Doctor Who thing's going to be on, and let's watch it." And then, no, it wasn't that. But
yeah, so remember, don't vote for Big Ron.
That's just a good general principle.
Yeah. That's who was that? Mike Reed? Is that the actor who played Big Ron?
I don't know. I've never seen EastEnders other than the EastEnders stuff in Dimensions in Time.
Yeah, the music is kind of hard to avoid.
Yeah, it is. Also, Christopher H. Bidmead is commissioned to write Frontios on this day, November 26, 1982, which would be his final broadcast. He got
But not as bad as Dimensions in Time. I was going somewhere with that.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah, Frontios is that's a hard watch, I find.
Yeah, me too, a little bit. Me too. Anyway, that's it. That's it for the Time Lash for this week. Up next, though, we're talking Chris Chibnall era Doctor Who. The past 4 or 5 years of Doctor Who. It's time to review it as we often do at the end of an era. So after the break, join us along with Sejong and Graeme Burk to talk about the Chris Chibnall, Jodie Whittaker era. Welcome back, everyone. It's every time that there is a changeover at the head of Doctor Who, we do a panel to discuss the era that we just lived through, celebrated, and endured, depending on your point of view. And this time is no different. We're here to take a look back at the Chris Chibnall era. It seems remarkable that it started in 2017, 2018. It feels like forever, and yet it was so short. And as as with all of these panels, along with myself and Chris and Warren, we invite a couple people on from outside of our little Radio Free Skaro sphere to make their opinions known. The first person, Sage Young, is an entertainment editor and writer who has written many reviews for Doctor Who on Head Over Feels, including many of the Chris Chibnall era episodes. Hello, Sage.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And our old friend Graeme Burk is a writer of several Doctor Who books, a host and producer of the Reality Bomb podcast, and indeed, yes, a frequent guest on this podcast, but not one for a while. It's good to have you back, Graeme.
It's great to be back.
Good. Well, let's see. I'm really intrigued to see where we are today, because I know Sage has been somewhat critical of the era. Graeme has been critical of the marketing of the era, but before recording, he told me that basically his opinions of the actual show itself have not been publicly known. So we're getting an RFS exclusive here.
Well, boy.
But if you
until his next book comes out,
until the next book comes out. Or the Doctor's 3. Try to if you can. I'll go around the room. I'll start with you, Sage, first. In one sentence, everyone give their overall impression of the Chris Chibnall era. I don't want to limit it to one word because that would be too difficult. One sentence.
Oh my God, one sentence.
Yeah.
Well-meaning, but not bold enough.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Graeme, what about you?
Started well and got progressively worse.
Right. Warren, how about yourself?
The Peter Davison era, part 2, which is both good and bad.
Wow. Interesting. I'll dive into that. And Chris, what about you?
I hope Chibnall got both barrels like he gave to Pip and Jane Baker.
Ouch.
All right. So we're off and running here.
And what is your opinion? What is your one sentence, Stephen?
My one sentence, definitely my third favorite era of modern Doctor Who. Let's put it that way. I mean, there are positives and there are certain negatives, I think, and we're going to try and cover them off in sort of topic form. I'm not going to go story by story or chronologically or anything like that. We're going to start off with what we thought about Jodie Whittaker and the main cast, both the characters and the actors themselves. What we thought of them. Sage, you actually interviewed Jodie Whittaker for a story back. I don't remember when. Was it for her debut or was it for
literally forever ago? Yeah, it was. So I talked to her twice. I talked to her for it was basically the week that they were in town for Comic-Con for the debut of the first episode. I talked to her privately, and then I spoke to her and Tosin Cole and Mandip Gill for the next season before Series 12 premiered. So it was really nice to get to talk to her twice and to get to meet the rest of the fam minus Graeme.
Mm-hmm. Not our Graeme, but Graeme and...
Not our Graeme, the other Graeme. Yeah, and it was like, so... that was beyond exciting for me. That was probably like the first time I got to talk to Jodie was like one of the most exciting assignments I'd ever gotten at work. And by assignment, I mean, like, I was like, I'm doing this. So, I went into this extremely, extremely jazzed and like really ready to love and celebrate this era. And, then it happened.
You're a master of understatement, Sage Young.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll throw it open to the whole floor. What were your overall impressions of the lead cast and the Doctor herself, Jodie Whittaker? Graeme, go. I'll start with you.
All right. So my feelings about Jodie Whittaker are complicated. Let's put it that way. I think she actually is really good, but she's really good at she's very good at naturalistic acting. Like, and because I rewatched The Woman Who Fell to Earth, and I was, if you look at scenes like that, her, when she's talking about being a traveler, she just really kind of nails that moment really well, and she's really great at that. But after that, I don't know. I just got progressively more and more disaffected by her performance. And I hit the moment, the aha moment I had was watching Eve of the Daleks, and I'm watching Aisling B just hit all the right notes, be eccentric, funny, charming. And I'm like going, why isn't Jodie Whittaker hitting any of those notes? And she hadn't been for a while. And I'm kind of stuck, because what is complicated is I don't know whether it's the writing of the character, because there is a problem in how the character is written. The character is written to be really, really passive. Like some friends of mine did a list of all the top five, stories she was in. And you look like half of them, like, Demons of the Punjab, Rosa. She doesn't have any bearing on the story. Nothing happens around her. So it's a very passive character. And on top of it, there's this kind of emotional closedness about her, which a good friend of mine actually kind of likened to Hugh Grant's character in About a Boy, which I thought was a wonderful comparison, because the thing about it is that, it's this kind of, I don't do people, I don't do, emotional things. And the thing is that it all points to a kind of journey to get to a point where there's that. And, other doctors have had that journey. Like Peter Capaldi starts out saying, I never trust a hug, and ends punching through a diamond wall to get Clara. So, she doesn't have that kind of end of About a Boy moment where she kind of gets it. She just stays aloof and closed. So I think part of it's the character, and part of it is just, I think she's miscast. Like, I think she's very good at very naturalistic acting, but get her to do anything doctory. One person pointed out to me once that, she always has the same pose for using the sonic screwdriver. She's kind of reduced the doctor part of the role to a series of tics. So anyways, gosh. So yeah, how is everyone else doing?
Warren, Chris, your thoughts, your
Chris,
rebuttal potentially?
Or I can go next.
Go for it, Warren.
Okay. So this is a little more, not about her so much as, my feelings about her doctor. So the Moffat era is, to me, this is where the Peter Davison thing comes in, as the Tom Baker era, this big dominant thing that I really loved and wasn't sure what the next thing was going to be. And then when Peter Davison shows up, I'm like, this guy's different, and he's nowhere near the same or as active as the other guy, but I still like him, and I'm not sure why, but I just like him for different reasons. And she was kind of the same thing. The previous doctors, much to my entertainment most of the time, shoot on the scenery like crazy, and she just wasn't that doctor. And I was like, well, this is kind of refreshing, frankly. I don't disagree with you, Graeme, that yeah, there was a lot of parts where she was more passive than she needed to be, and again, that could be the writing, not the acting. But she felt like a different doctor and not kind of the same guy over and over, which is, besides Eccleston, all of them more or less were. So that was, at first anyway, what I really liked about her.
Chris, your thoughts? Any thoughts at all on that?
I'm kind of on the same page as Warren. I was very excited for something different. Different isn't always necessarily good, and I'm not saying she was bad by any stretch of the imagination. I very much enjoyed her on the whole, but as Graeme called out, I'm not going to say a one-trick pony or anything like that, but she was, a little less animated perhaps than some others, but I mean, that's fine. If that's the style she wanted to go for, then that's her choice. She's a grown-up. And some people are going to like that, some people won't. And I was fine with it. We got, less of her than we got of any other doctor. And who knows, maybe if she had stuck around for longer, then maybe things would have been different. But I was just at the outset really excited to have, somebody literally different from everybody else we had before, and have that woman doctor and see where that role could go. And there wasn't really any sort of femininity attached to the role as such, but should there have been? And I don't know that there should have been, because it's still an alien character. Why should we attach our perceptions and mores to this character? So yeah, what Warren said.
Yeah, well, I'm
always for that.
Sage, I've been trying to sort of find this great line in a review that you did about Jodie's character that I'm going to try and sum up and probably forget, and hopefully you can.
Oh my gosh! Okay, you're gonna quote me.
It was the when you sort of said about like they basically tried to show that the new Doctor could be anyone, but basically succeeded in making her no one. Like I think you sort of said that her character was kind of like devoid. Do you remember what you were saying, and can you expand on that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think Chris touched on this a little bit. I think there was like a lot of there just seemed to be such a hesitancy to the way that they wrote her and the way that she performed it, in that they were really afraid of, I could just feel the fear of like, well, this is the first, woman in this role, and how are people going to take it? Or are they going to, are they going to take this in a way that we don't mean it, or whatever that happened to be? And it felt like they were really playing to, bad fans. It felt like they were trying to avoid falling into all these different traps that they were maybe making up in their heads. And she can't be too feminine, but she can't be too this, she can't be too that, she can't be too whatever. And there ends up just sort of being like nothing much to latch on to. Even in her aloofness, she still has these moments where she's friendlier than many of the other Doctors that we've seen, or where, she says something to Yaz that, like, the 10th Doctor was never able to say to Rose, like, if I could do it with anyone, I would do it with you. She never got that. So what is it about the 13th Doctor that makes her able to say that to Yaz? I don't know. I have no idea, because she's played aloof one second, and then in the next moment she's having these like very personal, intimate conversations like about emotions with her companions. So it just felt to me like there was just a fear, and it left kind of a hole. And I think that Jodie did an incredible job with what she had. And it's really, really hard to try to separate the performance from the writing, because I don't know what conversations they had about what this Doctor was meant to be, but it just really, it's just air. Like, it just really didn't feel substantial to me at all, especially in the end. I think I was really, if I was reading some of my Series 11 reviews, and I was like, I was trying to be so upbeat, you guys. I was like so optimistic. I was like, this is going to come around. And I did like Series 11 and 12 a lot more than I enjoyed Flux, but it all sort of hung in the balance of where are we taking this character, and ultimately, I mean, they didn't really take her anywhere. She got taken around everywhere because she was like never active, but to what end?
I wonder what. So we all saw the reaction of the fans to
don't know who you're meaning there, but I'm curious.
To Whittaker's, whether it's her casting, her portrayal, her whatever. I'm just thinking out loud. What might we think of the reaction from the fans if she had gone? So she played a very middle ground, very safe, very very neutral, very vanilla. I'm just wondering what people might think if she had gone like hard in one direction, like super tomboy, super Jessica Rabbit, super I don't know, super Meryl Streep and Devil Wears Prada, like
that I would watch. That'd be great.
Last one.
Well, first of all, I think there's all kinds of other directions she could have been that don't invoke necessarily a particular feminine stereotype. I would have been just happy for a Doctor that could tell jokes and kind of actually and actually be engaging and actually be the most important person in the room. I would like a Doctor that could actually, I don't know, do a dramatic monologue. Like, this is something that actually someone was talking about on Twitter that I totally agree with, is that, can you point to like a speech, like the kind of speeches that Capaldi delivered every episode with her Doctor? And you can't really, like, there's a couple here and there, like there's it's not a flat team structure, there's some stuff, but honestly, on the whole, she doesn't get those moments. She doesn't get the moment to actually, I remember Petra Mayer, God rest her soul, actually saying, when are we going to get her to actually do the "it is defended" moment? And she never did get one, honestly. And I feel that was a real kind of disservice to Jodie Whittaker.
Well, I think we're beginning to dovetail into the writing, because at some point, she can only do with what she is having written for her. And I'm getting the impression, even with not even bringing it up, that I think our biggest issue, perhaps, with the era, outside of maybe the marketing and promotion, which we'll get to, is the overall writing of it, and how in that first series, they, wanted to sort of like dial back and say, this is great for if you've never seen Doctor Who before, this is a great starting point. And that's the frustrating thing for me, is that a lot of times over the course of the next 3 seasons, it was like, this is great if you've never seen Doctor Who before. At some point, you have to sort of like incentivize watching Doctor Who so that you will be excited about it. We don't need 80 different jumping on points for a show. And I kind of felt like there was a lightness to it, in trying to desperately make it accessible Sunday night prestige television, that you wouldn't have to worry about all the backstory and everything like that. But in doing so, I think the writing kind of just made it a little bit maybe a little bit bland, but not as important as I think Doctor Who should be. Anyone's thoughts?
Well, you have a series where there are no returning monsters, which puts a lot of extra pressure on the writing to introduce more memorable monsters, which didn't really happen to any great degree.
Tim Shaw, how dare you?
Oh God!
You've also, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've also got a premiere episode that didn't even have opening credits.
No. What show are you watching? Who knows?
Yeah, how do you make that memorable to a new audience?
But I don't. The only returning monster in series 1 was the Daleks. It was, and it is one of the most memorable seasons of Doctor Who ever. I think the problem isn't that it withheld on that. I actually think the lack of credits in Women Who Fell to Earth is kind of a rare moment of kind of, let's do something out of the box. But for me, it's an issue of just timidity. There's just, it's a very kind of timid approach to Doctor Who. The first season is basically Doctor Who is procedural. It is all very low stakes procedural episodes. And Doctor Who is not really, it was an interesting experiment for about 10 minutes, but it's not really a procedural show. And so they try to make it, well, okay, we'll amp it up and give it what the fan expectations of Doctor Who are, which is, I guess, the Master and maybe something to do with the Time Lords and maybe an ongoing storyline. And no, that's actually not what makes Doctor Who, but it's better, but it's still very timid. And I guess that's my issue with it. It was also tentative for a better part of 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think and I know, Stephen, you're not the biggest fan of this show, but Andor on Disney Plus is giving you there's no Andor is not slowing down to explain to everybody what's going on at this point in this universe. It's not giving you a whole recap of Rogue One so that you can remember exactly who Cassian is. It really just jumps in and expects you to keep up with it. And I think that shows a respect for the audience that this era of Doctor Who really did not have. Mm-hmm. It was really just treating the audience as if, first of all, we couldn't understand what was going on because we were all brand new, which is not true. And again, treating the audience well, we don't want you to think bad things about us, or, we don't want you to get to the wrong idea about any of this. So we're going to be really careful in how we portray these things. And they're just, it just doesn't work if you hold back on whatever your actual vision for the show is. I was give me anything. What is your, what's our worldview here? What are we even talking about? And I couldn't tell you what Chibnall's Doctor Who is. I truly don't know. I feel like he didn't tell us.
Yeah, I heard on a podcast recently that Chibnall scripts never lie. Nobody ever lies in Chibnall scripts. Everyone does exactly what they say and say exactly what they do. And oftentimes they say exactly what they are doing whenever the Doctor encounters someone, and it's like, oh, here's their Wikipedia entry, so you're all filled in on it.
Or what they did after they fix something, and they say, oh, do you want to know how I fixed this whole thing where we were all about to die? I'm going to tell you about it over the 5 minutes.
Right. And we never actually saw anything happen.
Nope,
there was
we didn't see it happen.
There was no real tension or drama, and everyone was sort of like, you know what I mean? Like, did anybody sort of notice that? I never really had it notice it until it was pointed out to me on that podcast. But
everything is so tentative, though. Like, even in the characterization of the Doctor, and they always like, we're gonna like open up this possibility. Nah, not really. Like, oh, look, the Doctor has a past that we're not really going to talk about too much. Oh, look, we've got this watch. We're going to drop into the center of the TARDIS. Like, it just keeps on going like that. Oh, well, maybe the Doctor and Yaz are a thing, but yeah, we're just going to have the meat ice cream. Like, it's all just, like, it's so cowardly. Because never do they ever like open up the possibility and really go for it. Like, really, really go for it. Like, Timeless Child wasn't the biggest fan of it, but honestly, just go for it. For God's sakes, you're doing something big and bold and different. Obviously, you want it to mean no. We're just gonna kind of mention it and have the Doctor be mopey about it. Mm-hmm.
No, you're not wrong.
Yeah, Chris, you had some thoughts there, or were you just nodding along in agreement?
No, I just never really put two and two together until Graeme just brought it up. But I used to use the phrase back in the first era, RTD blue balls, where you
thankfully you don't anymore, right?
There'd be so much stuff built up and expectations and all that, and then delivery would always falter, and that's like that. There's so much more of that and so much stronger in the Chibnall era.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a great believer. I'm a great believer in the fact that failure to try is worse than trying and failing. And frankly, RTD, sometimes he could be scattershot, but at least he made real effort. At least you knew that every single time he was out there, he was leaving it on the field. And I don't feel there's nothing on the field with Chibnall.
To borrow a phrase I saw on MasterChef the other day, it's okay to fail. It's just not okay to fail again.
Well, that's a real grind set.
But yeah, no, it would have been nice to see some of that stuff kind of delivered through to any conclusion, like the watch drop down the console, like Yaz and the Doctor, like whatever. And then even in Power of the Doctor, we have other doors opened that are never going to get shut, like Graeme and Ace. Is that ever going to be a thing? Who knows? Whatever the case may be, but yeah, it's
the universe may be being put back together, or is it still destroyed at the end of Flux?
No one even cares.
As far as Graeme and Ace goes, consult your local AO3, and I think that'll be your answer right there.
Yeah. It does feel like a little lame duck in a way, just like, whatever. We'll pick up on what we want to pick up and not mention again what we don't want to mention in the new era. That's the kind of the way it felt to me.
But this is the lame duck Doctor ship. Like, it really, like,
yeah. I mean, sadly, it kind of. I mean, I've mentioned this on the show before. I can't remember if I mentioned it A on a podcast or B on a Fluid Links that we've already recorded. So bear with me on this. I already have or will say in the future that like Matt Strevitz actually told me this on stage at a convention, and how they were like, Jodie and Mandip were sort of coming back to them and going, wow, look at the fans. They're really into the Sasman thing, like the relationship between the 13th Doctor and Yaz. And it was only then that really the producers and the writers sort of like picked up on it. And you can kind of tell when that they probably addressed it once they were done with Flux, once they were, or at least partly through Flux, once they were pretty much, Power of the Doctor was sort of already planned out and written and stuff, they basically said, well, we can maybe throw it in at the end of Flux, which we haven't shot yet, but we have shot the first part. And then when we shoot Legend of the Sea Devils, which the BBC, which we had to add in because the BBC wants to put the Power of the Doctor in October instead of April, we'll basically address it then and put it to bed. Because it's not mentioned at all in Power of the Doctor, let's face it. And so that's the frustrating thing, is that they didn't pick up on what the actual actors are sort of doing. And you could tell, like, there's that look that Mandip Gill does at the end of Arachnids in the UK, just, you're the most amazing person I've ever met. Everyone just like that's the spark of Thasman right there, I think. And no one who made the show picked up on it. And it sat there for several years. And only when the stars themselves mentioned that it was, a hashtag on Twitter, did they finally say, oh, we should deal with that. Oh, that's right. We're done. So we have to put it to bed and never mention it again. So
this is much more minor than that. But when I interviewed the three actors together, it was after Spyfall part. Maybe both Spyfalls.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if it was both or one of them. But anyway, I asked Mandip because I was like, there were like some vibes between Yaz and the Master. Like, he was definitely flirting with her. Like, what was the deal with that? And she was like, wait, did they keep that in? and Jodie was like, oh yeah, you guys are like, you got a little thing going on, whatever. And it's not up to them to decide what to do with it, but like, they all recognized that had happened. And for what purpose? No purpose. That never went anywhere either.
I wonder how much of that is actors doing takes, though, and just throwing stuff in there, and then it goes in or it doesn't, right? Sure,
of course, but like, then what? You are the person. Yeah. Somebody has to choose what take to use, and you have to see what's happening in front of your face. It was just a very strange, like, little aside that nothing ever happened with it.
There's all this sort of sense of, let's just keep our options open throughout the entire thing. Like they were they were definitely warming towards a relationship with Yaz and Ryan at various points. Like, it just was like pick a lane, guys. Really,
pick a lane.
Any lane. Just drive it through the conclusion, please.
And like, in addition to nobody lying, this whole era too was like, good guys are very good, bad guys are very bad.
Yeah.
No one who is a good guy ever steps a foot out of line or has even like a moment where you think that they might not do the right thing. Like, I was rereading a little bit of my review of Battle of whatever, who cares?
Which is close to what it is, actually.
Like the conflict there is like, oh, is Graeme gonna murder Tim Shaw? It's like, of course he's not gonna murder Tim Shaw. Like, we know this character. You can't introduce the nicest people in the whole world and then sort of throw in this like ethical dilemma and expect that to have any dramatic weight. Like, he's gonna do the right thing, and obviously he does. So it's just there was no conflict.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a series that first series especially, I think, lacked in conflict. All the villains, so to speak, just eventually turned out to just sort of be misunderstood, and was it the assassins and demons of the Punjab aren't really there to be evil? They're just there to sort of like observe and everything. Yeah, observers, and it just kind of diminished their impact.
Well.
Do you say something more there?
I was just gonna say, like Sage said, there's all the villains are totally villains. There's no Missy factor here, where she could go one way or the other with this iconic character who you're kind of screwing around with, and that's the fun part of it. On the other hand, one thing I will give the Chibnall era is when I think he does better than most of them. Maybe RTD was good at this too. The glamorous villains, he's pretty good at those, like the Azur and what's her. I can't remember their names. I'll never remember their names.
Yeah,
there you go.
I like Swarm and Azura.
But they've got the whole Lelouch. Too tired of this crap, but we're going to destroy the universe anyway. They had that down. I'll give him that. He's pretty good at those guys.
Right.
I love Sacha Dhawan's Master, except for when he becomes a boring TED Talk lecturer. But but when he's actually just being badass, he's amazing.
Well, I'm not criticizing him. No, there's different kinds of masters you can do.
But I think that's just the thing with the Chibnall era is that he can occasionally pick a lane and do it really well. I just feel like I don't know why he didn't. Is my frustration.
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned about how sort of timid the show was. Certainly the first year. I think they probably overcorrected a little bit towards the end. But I thought the second series was probably my favorite. I thought, the Spyfall two-parter, I think was as brave and bold as Doctor Who has been going to South Africa to shoot, having this sort of like James Bondy kind of feel to it, completely wasting Stephen Fry in a role, which is kind of tragic. But I mean, Sacha Dhawan, the revelation of him being the master, I think, was well done. And then there were other elements of that season that I think, the Joe Martin Doctor reveal, even the Captain Jack return was not really foreseen that much. And my favorite of the whole era, the Haunting of Villa Diodati, which is ironically not written by Chibnall. So I don't know. I thought that perhaps they leveled up a little bit in ambition, and I think they probably went a little too far in the final two-parter. But what is everyone else's thoughts on that?
I think there's a real course correction. I think to a certain extent, they decided to pattern it on the previous era of Doctor Who. I mean, Spyfall has that, massive Moffat-y kind of reveal that, of all the ways the Doctor kind of backtracked her solution. And it's kind of, it feels very like, well, they want this kind of stuff, we'll give them this kind of stuff. And on the whole, I agree with you, Stephen. I actually really like Series 12 a lot. I felt like there was at least a sense of fun to it that was good. Like, even the kind of ones that are kind of coasting are genuinely fun, like Nikola Tesla's like Night of Terror, Praxius. Like I really enjoy a lot of the kind of sort of middle of the road stories in that season, a hell of a lot more than middle of the road stories in even Moffat's, towards the end of Moffat's time.
Mm-hmm. Sage, you were tag teaming with Kim doing reviews on Head Over Fields. What was your overall opinion of the second series, Series 12?
I agree. Series 12 was definitely my favorite. It really did. It felt like, I agree with Graeme. There was like a sense of fun and a sense of play of like, oh, we actually do have this toy. Like, let's do something with it. I do feel like, and these are things that I don't know how much I notice them when I'm actually watching it until the time that I'm watching it again to do a review. Like, every Chibnall script falls apart in the third act. Like, I don't know if he just cannot write a science fiction story, but usually you're left with like a ton of questions of like, how did this get done? Crazy plot holes. And yes, we're all watching Doctor Who and we're used to doing some amount of blank filling ourselves, but this is like to an egregious degree. Like, Spyfall Part 1 is so cool and so great, and you end that episode really excited for what's to come, and the resolution doesn't make sense in any way on so many different levels. And you don't see the resolution from the Doctor. You hear her talk about what happened, what they did while Ryan and Graeme and Yaz were just sitting in a like airplane hangar for some reason. Like, they got there and they just didn't leave or do anything else, even though they didn't know what was going to happen. They just all sort of fall apart at the finish line. But I agree. I felt like I remember being, and even watching Timeless Children, I know people were angry about that for their own canon reasons, and that stuff doesn't bother me at all. I could care less. I was just really excited that there seemed to be just a sense of finally coming down on some line as far as what this Doctor was going to be and what this era was going to be. It was like, we're doing something. We're doing something. I don't even care if it works out, but we're doing something. And then it felt like that all kind of pulled back for Flex. So it was a bummer. But yeah, there are some great episodes. There are some episodes of this era that I will always dearly love.
I mean, I wasn't going to necessarily go about this chronologically, but I do feel the three series are so different from each other. Potentially, COVID made everything bad, and was a struggle for a lot of different TV shows to go through, and movies. You could kind of tell the seams coming apart at some parts, and like even just sort of having to structure Flux around Yaz and the Doctor basically being separated because they are the two stars of the show, and if one of them got sick, they would have to shut down, they could shut down that half of production and still carry on with the other half. So there is, I don't fault them too much when it comes to how they endured making Flux. But as I've said a lot of time, a lot of people have said this too, something happened in between the first production block, which was episodes 1, 2, and 4, and the second production block, 3, 5, and 6, that kind of made everything go off the rails a bit. I think the wrap up was way too rushed, and basically they just had to close as many doors as they could, even though Kevin McNally was stuck in the doors thinking, nope, you're gonna die now, there's no time to deal with you. Over anyone's overall opinion. I'll tell you what, I haven't heard from Warren for a little bit. Warren, what your overall opinion of Flux and the way that it was sort of written and put together?
I think I'm gonna say what I was gonna say. It was just kind of a mess. Like I started caring because it was all very. Like, I think what Sage says is right. Like he doesn't know how to end this thing, and he really didn't know how to end that thing. And the Timeless Children thing bugs me a bit because I'm old and cranky and need my 12 to 13 doctors to be the way they are for no good reason. I fully admit that's stupid. But yeah, like there were high points, but like the Angels one is great, and there's bits and pieces that are fun. But honestly, and this is no slight on Jodie, but all this stuff, the little adventure on the side with Dan and the old guy whose name I can't remember, and Mandip, that was more interesting. And I'm kind of like, I kind of want to see more of this set of adventures, to be honest with you, which it didn't, I don't know. It just kind of, it started strong and finished weak, basically, is what it boils down to.
Remember how they just left that little girl there?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of indicative of the whole thing. There's a lot of stuff just kind of got left there. Or the fact that the woman who becomes Azure, they don't explain that. She just kind of just becomes Azure for no reason.
There's the thing about Flux that really bugs me is indicative of the entire Chibnall era, which is that everything could be fixed with one line theory of Chris Chibnall, which is that, you could have a line that explained, oh, well, we left the girl behind with X to go live out her life as we know she does. They could have fixed that. That could have been easy. Right. Like, you could have had the, my big example of this is Power of the Doctor. You could have had the Master actually say, instead of, just randomly deciding to force the Doctor to regenerate into him so that he can cosplay as her. He could have said, the Cyberium is burning me out from the inside, and I can't regenerate anymore, so I have to steal your body. Like one line.
That makes sense. Yep.
And suddenly that random thing makes sense. And Flux is full of those things. Like it drives me nuts. So the thing that drives me nuts about Flux is that, first of all, why is Vinder even a thing? Okay, so let's just I do not get this they brought him to Comic-Con to go show him off, and I'm like going. And there's no reason, like Chris Chibnall is the person who's most in love with Vinder is Chris Chibnall and no one else.
How much of that was Game of Thrones fumes maybe, that they were trying to draw?
Probably. But my point more is that so you have this kind of character, the Grand Serpent, who turns out to be behind everything in the entire history of UNIT in episode 5, which could have been an actually interesting reveal. But here's the thing, if that's going to be what you're going to do with that character's trajectory, I don't know. Introduce him in episode 1 as the kingpin of the galaxy, and instead of as Vinder's bad boss. Like, really, guys, it's just basic thinking about it. And I feel like they don't think about the details in any kind of way or sweat them in any kind of way. And I look at, the eras of Doctor Who that worked the most, they were done by people who really sweated the details. Whether they executed them well or not is another question, but they actually cared about them.
And to your point about one-line throw-offs, RTD and Moffat were both excelled at that. So you do miss it now.
Yeah.
So the feeling in the room here is that maybe we're not as high on the Sierra as other eras.
Says the person who called it his third favorite.
Before we get on to another aspect, which I'm sure we'll have complaints about, I do want to talk about the new look and the new sound of the show. With Segan Akinola doing the music for the first time, who was not Murray Gold, and the aspect ratio gets a little wider. They start using anamorphic lenses. I think cinematically, I thought, and even a lot of the CG and special effects, I thought looked fabulous. I don't know if anybody else had strong feelings. I know we sort of focus on more production side elements here on this show than perhaps other podcasts. But does anyone have any comments on the look and sound of the show?
The one thing I loved about this version of Doctor Who, and it was so evident from the get-go, is that they actually allowed for silences. Like, characters talked in long periods of silence. And I actually, and that was a very kind of radical kind of stepping away from the sort of, we must have Murray Gold filled every single moment with music. And I love Murray Gold's music, but it was a very kind of radical shift. And I love that about it. I love the actual look and feel of it. The new lenses were great. The whole sort of way the show looked, it looked more like the television around it. It was starting to get that kind of Star Trek around Enterprise kind of feel where, oh, well, maybe if we can just letterbox it, we will disguise the fact that it's episode 700 of Next Generation. And it was kind of, Doctor Who was kind of getting that way. And I kind of, in terms of the look and feel, I love it. And I love Segan Akinola's music so much. I think it's actually really great.
Yeah, I just want to throw in quickly. Verity covered Runaway Bride recently, so we watched that, and like the opening scene with Donna and the Doctor in the TARDIS is so overplayed in terms of music. There's jaunty comedy music going out through the entire scene, and it's like, this is so 2006. We wouldn't do this today. And you're right, Graeme. I never really noticed how much, even not so much silence, but just like sometimes Segan Akinola would just sort of put a mood in there, like just a sound. This kind of reminds you of the score, such as it is to No Country for Old Men, where it's just sort of this undercurrent, sort of a drone kind of thing, which I think was kind of nice. Yeah. Anyone else? Chris, I know you commented on directors and the look of the show in the past. Do you have any thoughts to chip in here?
Music-wise, Series 11, 12, and 13 are the only soundtrack albums I've ever actually bought.
Wow.
Because I'm really digging the Akinola music. As far as the look and stuff goes, the new lenses and the new aspect ratio and all that are just beautiful. And it doesn't hurt that they went to, like you mentioned, their journeys to South Africa, for example, and just using the landscapes and the locations very effectively. It just looks, all of it just looks so fantastic, except when it doesn't. I'm looking at you, Flux, when Jodie and Mandip are hanging upside down from that stupid Carvanista thing. But
there's only so many ways you can make green screen look good. And they involve a lot of money.
It's rough.
I know, but it just looks so bad.
Blame it on COVID. Blame it on COVID.
And that's the thing. It got more green screen heavy as it went along. And I kind of feel like if you look at something like The Woman Who Fell to Earth or the Ghost Monument, it's really making the most of the locations and exterior shots. And as they and COVID probably had a played a part, but they were even doing it in Series 12. They started doing a lot more interiors, and they started doing a lot more dodgy green screen, and things like Orphan 55.
Yeah, I don't doubt that COVID had a massive role in that, but yeah, like Ghost Monument, episode 2, like how beautiful did that look when we first saw that?
And sounded. I love that music in that episode.
Yeah, it is really great.
Yeah, Warren, you have thoughts on the look and feel of the show? No, you're a cinematographer at heart. I know you are. So.
Oh well, I mean, the fact that they were presumably using area cameras and using the Cook lenses and all the rest of it did make it look, and anamorphic too. Like all that made it look very, very much like. Part of this is when it was made and how TV was made at the time, but each era does kind of make a leap forward, because the Moffat era looked a hell of a lot better than the first RTD era, and this era looked way better than the Moffat era, to be fair. You look back at some Moffat stuff and you're like, yeah, this looks good, but it doesn't look as good as that. And so I'm assuming RTD2 will look even better than that, because he's going to have all that they have to work with and Disney money.
That too. And a giant studio at Bad Wolf too, from what I'm told.
Yep. Or it'll all be on the volume and you'll hate it. One of the two.
I don't know if it'll be at the volume. Speaking of the look of the show, I mean, the one thing I think we can credit this era is how much more diverse in front and behind the camera. We got a lot of, a lot of women directors, a lot more women writers on the show, a lot more people of color writing and directing the show. Does anyone want to comment on how much of a step forward that was for the show?
Yeah, I mean, that's one. I mean, I hope we carry that forward. Certainly, I think some of the best episodes were written by some of these newer writers, and we didn't really talk about this before because we got so stuck on Jodie, but I also think that one of the strengths of this era to me was the fam. I really liked having a crowded TARDIS, as much as I wish that there had been sort of more conflict among the group, because I think it would have been more interesting. I thought they all had really great chemistry, and there were some really kind of unexpected relationships that came out of that, like thinking about, that really sweet scene with Graeme and Yaz, where he tells her like how impressive she is. And, I thought all that stuff was really special and something that we didn't really get out of the rest of the modern era. It's really just kind of like somebody getting swept away and really having no one to talk to who understands this. And these guys had each other. And so, yeah, I think having the fam there was a big strength. And I wasn't sure about a crowded TARDIS, but I'm sold.
Mm-hmm.
I will say though, here's my diversity complaint about this era is that I really feel like, the fugitive doctor was used so poorly after she was introduced, and such a bummer. We already had like Grace dying in the first episode, which, I can understand having like an inciting incident to bring all these people together. Like, I get it, story-wise. Optics weren't great. And then, fugitive doctor, such a badass, such a cool reveal, such a great, like, she's amazing in Fugitive of the Jadoon. And then moving forward, she just shows up to tell 13 how great she is. Like, you can do it. And I felt like that was really problematic and a bummer. And I'm just like, did nobody think that this was maybe like not a great look for the show? She deserved a lot better.
She basically becomes Bagger Vance,
Yes.
She becomes
a trope.
to coin a phrase, and this is the actual the phrase, and I hope not to offend anyone, but I'm calling it by the phrase it is. She's a magical Negro.
That is literally what it is. Yes.
That's what it is. She comes in to just remind the doctor that she's doing okay, and then she goes off, and the white doctor is all happy now that she's been inspired to do the right thing.
But I guess that's my caution about this era of the show is, on the one hand, yes, it did do some amazing kind of strides, but on the other hand, there is a certain cosmeticness about it. It's I keep on thinking of that the last line on the title card in Charlie Wilson's War, where they actually have the real Charlie Wilson say they effed up the follow through. And I feel like that's what they do constantly. Like a friend of mine pointed out to me, like, on the one hand, you want to praise them for having Dan's girlfriend, not have an arm, but on the other hand, you have Dan in Legends of the Sea Devil showing off a hook. And you're kind of like going, guys, are you actually like connecting the pieces here? Like there is like, at some point there needs to be some kind of actual thinking of the whole. And I don't feel like that's what they do. And the Fugitive Doctor is another really big example of that, because that drove me nuts too.
Also, and this is not a diversity thing, it's kind of the opposite, but isn't it weird that the two guys we were really prepared to dislike intensely, the two old white guys, were both kind of beloved? And that's nothing against them. They're good characters, but why is that? That's weird.
I know Danby thought it was going to be the third wheel, but he became Yaz's wingman, which I thought was kind of endearing. I wasn't expecting that. I
think maybe the lesson to take from this is that white men will benefit from low expectations.
I guess that's probably true, yeah.
Not that they weren't wonderful, but like it was even more wonderful because it was a surprise to many of us.
Mm-hmm. I think part of it is just yes. On the one hand, they are a security blanket. On the other hand, I think they kind of just very cunningly cast. If they're going to cast, if they're going to cast like an older white guy, then getting Brad Walsh and getting John Bishop, who are not known for playing roles of this type. Well, Brad Walsh was a long time ago, but he's kind of become more of a comedy and variety actor now. To get them to kind of do that kind of it's suddenly like, oh my God, these guys are actually really, really capable of things. So I guess
they're fun to watch, which is what their job is.
It's so fun to watch. I don't know if this was thoughtful, but I think it does. I think it did help the show that, you're putting these guys into these situations where they're like, she's the boss. Why are you looking at me? Like, she's the boss.
Yeah.
And, I think people were like, well, why are they around? It's like, well, I don't know. Maybe there's a little more to it than you're thinking. I think it was kind of cool to see what we usually see on screen in Doctor Who flipped.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think the one thing I think in terms of the fam, it's interesting to me that I really liked the original iteration of it. I really liked Graeme, Ryan, and Yaz. I thought they really kind of functioned well. Rewatching the series 11 and 12, I was really struck at how good Tosin Cole is in ways that I don't think I quite registered when I watched it. And the fact that Ryan was able to be the kind of person that could stand up to the Doctor's BS. In a way that Yaz isn't capable of it. And so that was my great frustration, is that once you had sort of Graeme and Ryan disappear, you lost the figures that could actually kind of, Graeme kind of softened the edges of the Doctor, and Ryan was the one who basically just called the Doctor on her BS. And all Yaz could do was complain about the Doctor's BS, but the Doctor would just keep on BSing. And Dan just didn't have that kind of function to kind of, divert from the Doctor's harsher side. That I think that, and I think that's kind of why I found Jodie in the 13th Doctor in Flux to be such a massive buzzkill all the time. All she does is is go in the TARDIS and snap at Yaz. I'm kind of like really happy for when Yaz goes and travels alone, because I'm like going, girlfriend, you're in love with the wrong person, man. She's mean to you.
Red flag, dear, red flag.
Right.
All right. So I think we learned in like the space of maybe one or two public appearances, or maybe even one or two Instagram posts from Russell T Davies, how much we've missed proper promotion of Doctor Who.
It's Graham's favorite subject.
Look at those stakes aligned perfectly in front of him.
For those that don't know, Doctor Who had a brand manager from about the Christian Invasion onwards through until the end of the Stephen Moffat era. They decided to bring promotion for Doctor Who in-house to the BBC, starting with the Chris Chibnall era, basically making Doctor Who just another show in the quiver that is the cocked arrow of BBC promotions. I think we all have some issues with promotion. Graeme, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I want to take everyone back to 2020. It was a dark time in our lives. We were really, it was really scary. There was a lot going on. There was an election that was going to go really south. There was COVID. There was everything, and yet we all knew that they had not only made Doctor Who, but they had shot it a year ago. They had everything in the can for it. And so they're coming to go do a Comic-Con panel at New York Comic-Con, and they're going. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, we're going to get a trailer. It's 3 months out. It's about time we got a trailer for this thing that you made in September 2019, right? Like, you're going to show a trailer, right? You're going to actually announce the fact that John Barrowman is in it, which is like an open secret, right? And instead, ladies and gentlemen, what they did was they showed 4 still photographs. 4 still photographs, folks. It still hurts. It still hurts. Like, what level of idiocy, what level of incompetence brings us to a point that how many meetings had to happen to say, so what are we going to actually have them show at this New York Comic-Con panel where all the other major brands are unveiling what they're doing? I don't know. How about a couple of photos? Like, who made that decision and why weren't they fired?
That is Canada level nincompoopery.
Yeah, that is Canada level nincompoopery. So I mean, there are so many other examples I could give, but that, my friends, is, I think, the Chris Chibnall era of Doctor Who and all its complete jackassery in one bad example. Like, why? 4 still photographs.
I feel like Chris Chibnall wanted to keep all of his cards close to the vest so he doesn't spoil things, kind of merged really well with how the BBC was promoting it, which is very much like, the funny thing is I would mention how annoyed I was on the promotion of the show, and that people, usually British people, let's face it, usually older British males, let's face it, would sort of tell me, this is the way the BBC has always done it. Why are you complaining? This is the problem. Doctor Who did not, I think they marketed it as a show that they might have marketed it back in 2005 or something like that, not really appreciating that the world has moved on. Every show has its own basically streaming platform right now. Every show gets their broadcast or drop date, or at least drop month. At least we know when a show is coming, like months in advance. You see these massive planning boards from Marvel saying, here are the movies and when they're going to come out, and the series and when they're come out, and then there's Doctor Who going, yep, coming this autumn, as we're like 6 weeks into autumn and we don't know when it's coming. So it was frustrating, and a lot of people who I know who aren't the idiotic fans that we are, staying up to way too late to bitch about an entire era of a Doctor Who show on a Thursday night. We're just not aware of the show. Like, it had just left their mind because there's about 50 other shows to sort of watch. And I don't think the broadcasting, and I don't think perhaps the way the show was made and how much it wanted to be put out there was sort of doing anything to sort of wedge its way into the consciousness of the public,
They lost sight of the fact that it's that it's not just a single TV show airing on BBC One. It's a brand. Mm-hmm. It's a major brand. It's like the top number 2 or number 3 brand the BBC does. Like this is, you do not treat this the same way that you treat, I don't know, a 3-episode miniseries with Jenna Coleman. It's just not they are not treated the same way. And pretending that a story that is going to be released on New Year's Day is like, why are you even pretending that it's not? Why are you even not just saying, look, it's going to be out New Year's Day? Like, just say it, for God's sake.
The title is Resolution. We could probably guess what day it's going to show up on.
It's called the Halloween Apocalypse. Like, come on.
What day could it possibly air on?
Happy Christmas. On Sunday, somehow.
Yeah.
It's just my like journey as a fan. I feel like I would not have become as big a fan as I am as quickly as I did if there wasn't stuff going on, like there were places to go. You could get, like, especially in New York, like, you could go to the Ziegfeld and see a premiere. Like, there were events, like there were pop-ups, there were things that were happening, and places to meet other fans. And that played a huge role in my own like development as a Doctor Who crazy person. And it's sad that that people who like, why would you go to all of this effort to try to make sure that the show is accessible to as many brand new people as possible and then just stop communicating with them about it?
Well, I do feel that I think the writing was on the wall for BBC America probably sometime around 2021, because you could really tell that they were sort of not interested in doing anything above the bare minimum. I was told somewhere that Chris Chibnall was actually said in an interview, I think it was in Doctor Who magazine or somewhere, where it was basically BBC America who ponied up the dough to put on a San Diego Comic-Con panel. And there was one year where it looked like there was an opening on Sunday afternoon, and all of a sudden Doctor Who wasn't there, and I feel like something fell through. So I feel like BBC America sort of pulling back from Doctor Who because their contract was probably up, which is interesting given the timing of the Disney thing and all that. I think that really hampered the attention of the show in this country.
But if you're gonna go to the trouble of getting them to go to a major Comic-Con and they're not going to bring any assets beyond 4 photos,
right?
Like why would I bother to promote this show? There are other things like I could actually promote that, like literally. They had TBA on BBC America's schedule for the better part of a month, last year when they were waiting for Flux. Like it's ridiculous that because basically they just sort of they forgot that they went day and date to curb downloading and to actually recognize that there is an actual global audience for this show, and then they promptly gave none of those global audiences any support whatsoever. And so frankly, thank God for Disney Plus is all I can say, because maybe we'll get a better deal, maybe won't, I don't know, but it has to be better than what we got the past several years.
It can't be any worse.
Can't be any worse.
Yeah, Sage, what was it like to watch Doctor Who on BBC America? Tell the 4 Canadians on this panel who probably didn't have many opportunities to do that.
I mean, I don't know how often I did that either.
Right?
Don't put me on blast. I don't have cable.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. But yeah,
I will say too,
that shows the accessibility of the show too. But anyway,
yeah, it's difficult. But also back when I used to be on the occasional list, I'm not on anybody's list anymore because I don't really do that kind of work anymore. But one of the last little press gifts that I ever got was ahead of was it Revolution? Mm-hmm. They sent out, and I was like, "Oh, cool! Doctor Who packages is great." And the 2 things that were in the Doctor Who package, it's not that I'm not complaining about getting free things, but it was like a Sonic that the batteries had run out, and like an old mug. Like, it wasn't even new stuff. They didn't even produce any sort of new, there wasn't like a postcard in there reminding you of when the show was on. There wasn't any sort of new merch. Like, they just kind of like took whatever was in the closet and sent it out to people. And I was like, oh, okay. I feel like they were not given the budget beyond shipping this stuff out, which, as you said, it kind of seemed like the writing on the wall.
Mm-hmm. And I remember when I sort of did a Reality Bomb panel on marketing, I sort of did a chart of how many days out from broadcast did they announce an air date, and you were getting to 5-6 months out sometimes back in the day. And so I really get frustrated by older British men when they say, well, yes, but they have to have their commercial edge with ITV. I'm like, going, to what end? Like, they did it for 7 years without any major damage to their to the ratings of the show. So why not engage the fans by putting out a trailer 6 months early? Every single, we never got a trailer. We got more in 10 seconons of Russell's first trailer for Doctor Who than we got in any number of trailers that were produced during the Chibnall era. There was actual excitement. There was actual he is willing to spoil things. He put Shooty in David Tennant's costume just to kind of punk us all. Come on. Anyways, timid. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've spent a lot of time here.
You asked for it, guys. I'm sorry.
I know. This is. I mean, these are our natural reactions to the era. We're not being overly negative. I think this is just what's coming out on this evening. But as we wrap, I do want to focus on the positive and ask each of you. I'll start with you, Warren, and then Chris, and then Graeme and Sage. What were your favorite aspects of the era? You don't have to narrow it down to just one, but like just in general, what were your favorite things about the era that you thought was a success?
It did look great. It was a breath of fresh air in a lot of ways, like mostly being a whole bunch of people who were, and this is not a criticism because they were all good, but people were holdovers from the RTD era into the Moffat era. It was all feeling kind of samey, and this, for whatever its faults, did not feel samey. So I think that was my favorite thing up until near the end.
Up until near then what
when
happened?
It started feeling it became its own kind of samey, right?
Oh, so, yeah. Chris, do you have any final thoughts about your favorite aspects of the era?
Sure. Some highlights were definitely Graeme and Ryan, Sacha Dhawan's master, and Stephen Thompson wasn't showrunner.
Or even existing at all, of course. But Graeme, what about you?
I think for me, what I loved about it was it did an ensemble cast really well, and it showed that you could actually have a much larger, more sprawling cast and do interesting things with them and actually make each of their journeys interesting in that you care about them and I love that. I love that original TARDIS team, and I loved their attempts to kind of even in a story like Power of the Doctor, they managed to really get me invested in Ace and Tegan really right away. So I think he was just very good at ensemble casts.
Mm-hmm. And Sage?
My slightly jokey answer is Alan Cummings, King James.
I think that's legit.
But also, that might be my number one favorite thing. I agree that it looked beautiful, other than the bad green screen moments, and not being able to have extras for Sea Devils, which was depressing. But no, we're focusing on the positive. Yeah. I think for just, I don't know if this is too like existential, but I think what I'll remember most about this era is the anticipation for it and just the pure excitement of the announcement of Jodie. And I don't really want to let even like my own, like the flaws that I found within it kind of overshadow the fact that this was a huge moment and like we've done it and we're past it and it happened and now we get to move forward from this, and somebody had to be the first. And no, it wasn't perfect, but I'm still so grateful. And I remember right before the Jodie announcement happened, where I was like, if this doesn't go somewhere different, I don't know what I am going to do as a Doctor Who fan, and just like the sheer joy. So yeah, I don't know. I think despite whatever faults it has, it will always be really meaningful to me for that reason. And I do think, having met some of these folks and seen you guys interview them at cons, it does seem like, especially the cast and the writers and directors and guest stars and all those people really did care about each other and cared about having fun and like creating a really nice environment for each other on set. And you could kind of feel that vibe in the show too. And all anybody has ever had to say about Jodie as like number one on the call sheet is that she went out of her way to make people feel comfortable and welcome. And it has that warmth come through on the screen.
I think so too. I appreciated being able to watch an entire different fan group, aka not a straight white guy like I am, appreciate a Doctor Who casting that spoke to them for the first time. Seeing the number of women just be really emotional at the fact that they had cast a woman as Doctor Who. and even just cast anyone but a white guy. I mean, it almost felt like it was expected now. Like when they announced Ncuti Gatwa, it's like, oh yeah, cool, Ncuti Gatwa. I don't know who he is. Oh, he's from that sex education show, and he's black. That's awesome. Like it felt like, okay, now we've broken down the straight white guy barrier.
Yeah.
We can do anything with the casting of the show. And I think you have to credit Jodie for that. I love her debut at Comic-Con that year, where she walked down the runway at Ashley Eckstein's fashion show. I love her. I mean, is it too much to say that one of the greatest moments of an era of Doctor Who is an apropos moment that she did in a closet in the early days of the pandemic?
Phenomenal. To
reassure everyone out there, kids both young and old, that things are going to be okay. There are a lot of stuff to complain about the era, but I think at its heart, or if you will, at its hearts, I think it was in its right place, and maybe it just didn't quite pull it off the way we hoped or intended or wished. But I think there were correct decisions made, and maybe we just didn't follow through with them, which might be just emblematic of the whole era. But my favorite thing really is about that whole era is that it allowed us all to get together to talk about it. So thank you, literally the friends we made along the way. Graeme, Burk, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Sage, thank you.
Thank you. This was so fun.
Thanks all. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we'll do one more week of Chibnall retrospecticus next week with Paul Kirkley and hopefully Beth Axford, but we'll see. And then we'll get back to our Earthshock commentaries later on as we roll into December here, coming up to the holiday season. The Fluid Links Advent calendar will be starting up soon. We're recording some more of those right after we're done recording this. So we've got one more batch to go. If you have any more Doctor Who Fluid Links, tweet at us still at Twitter, hashtag Fluid Links, or there's a website post there too if you want to leave them your comments in there. Try us on Mastodon if you want. We signed up to an account for Mastodon, despite the scoff from Chris there. It's I noticed that Mastodon was having some issues over the past couple of days, probably with the flood of people going over there and claiming accounts, and it seemed a little sluggish. So
can I just praise your lovely wife Erica, because she is boosting, which is what they call retweeting, a ton of people who I weren't aware are on there and are good follows. So she is basically my main news source for finding new people on there.
Oh, good for her.
She is doing that quite well. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, good for her. I haven't checked it in the past couple of days to really notice. So. All right. Well, that's it for this episode of the Radio Free Skaro Doctor Who podcast. Until next time, I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
So long for now.
You've been listening to Radio Free Skaro. Find us online at radiofreeskaro.com. Follow us on Twitter and Tumblr at Radio Free Skaro. Subscribe to us on iTunes and donate to the show at patreon.com/Radio Free Skaro. Thank you.